A temp worker? So basically, just a part-timer who couldn't land a full-time job? The words, casually thrown across the table, stirred something unsettling in my chest. It happened at a mixer. I had been dragged here by a coworker as a last-minute replacement, and now, the first woman I met was already looking at me with disdain. I thought we'd have things in common since we're all music school graduates. But can a temp worker even keep up with the conversation about music? I feel like our lifestyles are just too different, and honestly, it might just be awkward for you. She twirled her wine glass between her fingers, sneering as if to say I didn't belong. The other women exchanged subtle smiles, whispering to each other in hushed voices. It's true, I was just a temp at a mid-sized company. The only thing I could really take pride in was my fast typing speed. Sorry about this, Nathan. Ryan, my coworker, scratched his head apologetically. Seeing his expression, I realized that staying here would only make things uncomfortable for both of us. Might as well leave early. Well then, I'll be heading out. Just as I was about to stand up. Wait a second. I'm a huge fan of yours. Can I get your autograph? A woman from the next table rushed over, holding out a CD. The entire room froze. The women who had spent the evening treating me like an outsider now sat in stunned silence. I hadn't planned on revealing anything, but at this point, there was no avoiding it. That was a long time ago. At that moment, I had no idea that this mixer would mark the beginning of a new chapter in my life. My name is Nathan. I work as a temp at a mid-sized company in Tokyo called Sterling Solutions. I'm assigned to the media development department, where we coordinate with magazine publishers and online media. That said, my actual tasks are mostly data entry and organizing documents, back office work, nothing major. Since I'm just a temp, I have no say in any major decisions. My role is simply to be accurate and fast. In particular, my value lies in my fast typing speed, which is the only reason I'm considered useful. To be honest, I'm fine with that. There's something calming about typing away in silence, preparing reports and proposals in the background. Back when I was struggling at the forefront of another industry, I never had this kind of peace. I don't crave the spotlight. I don't have any ambitions to stand out or make a name for myself at work. The uncertainty that comes with being a temp is always there, but I've convinced myself that this is where I belong. Still, there's one guy at the company I genuinely respect. Ryan, a full-time employee in my department. He's a year older than me, bright, easygoing, and treats everyone the same. Regardless of whether they're full-time or temp, he always makes a point to say things like, "Hey, Nathan. Thanks for all your help, and man, we'd be lost without you." His attitude, free of any divide between temps and full-time employees, has saved me more times than I can count. Nathan, you're still working overtime? That evening, as I sat at my desk inputting data, Ryan rushed over in a hurry. I glanced at the clock, just past 6 p.m. Technically, my shift was over, but I still had a bit of work left to wrap up. Almost done. What's up? Actually, there's a mixer tonight. One of the guys had to cancel last minute, so we're short on numbers. Nathan, could you come help us out? A mixer, huh? I paused my typing and looked at him. Ryan's expression was almost desperate, as if clinging to his last hope. Look, I get it. You're probably not into these things. But this isn't just a random mixer. You know our client, that music magazine? This was set up as a networking opportunity. Some of us from our department were supposed to go, but one guy just called in sick with the flu. If we don't have enough people, it'll be awkward as hell. Come on, man, I need you. The music magazine. Oh, you mean Noble Artist or something like that? Yeah, that's the one. The editorial team of Noble Artist, led by Lena, is coming. Apparently, most of them are music school grads. Plus, from what I hear, they're all stunning. I only met them once, but they were definitely glamorous. But more importantly, they're our client. So we need to be professional. Please, Nathan, just come for a bit. It's true that our department frequently communicates with that music magazine. We coordinate column articles with our projects, explore potential collaborations between media platforms, and handle related paperwork. That said, my role is mostly behind the scenes, proofreading documents and checking for typos, so I rarely have the chance to meet anyone from the magazine in person. Meeting them face to face made me a little nervous, but if Ryan was struggling this much, I couldn't just leave him hanging. All right. If you're asking that much, I'll go. Really? Thanks, man. Seriously, I owe you one. You don't need to worry about making conversation or anything, just having you there is enough. That actually makes it easier for me. I'm not great at starting conversations anyway. And with that, I wrapped up my work early and headed to the mixer with Ryan. The venue was a stylish bistro in the city, and when we arrived, the women were already seated. All three women had great figures and were clearly well dressed, making it obvious they put effort into their appearance. Seeing them, I couldn't help but feel a bit intimidated. So this is what music school graduates are like. One woman in particular, sitting toward the back, stood out as especially stunning. Her long black hair, styled in loose waves, shimmered under the light, leaving a striking impression. I instinctively knew this had to be Lena. Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. Ryan took the lead in greeting everyone as the mixer officially began. The three music school graduates appeared to be colleagues from the magazine's editorial team. As introductions went around, I simply said, "I'm Nathan. I handle paperwork for our magazine collaborations." Lena turned to me with a curious look. "Excuse me, but are you from a different department? Have we met before?" "Ah, well, I'm a temp. My main tasks are data entry and proofreading, so I don't usually have the opportunity to interact with you all directly." As I gave a slight nod, Lena responded with a thin smile and said, "Oh, I see," as if she had just confirmed something. But her expression didn't show simple understanding, it carried a hint of condescension as if she was thinking, "Ah, that explains it." She took a sip of water, then lifted her chin slightly, looking down at me with quiet scrutiny. It was as if she was silently asking, "Are you sure a temp like you belongs at a mixer like this? Well, since you were kind enough to help even out the numbers, let's try to enjoy the evening, shall we?" Her words sounded polite, but there was a subtle sharpness in her tone. I felt it clearly as I took my seat. Ryan was trying his best to keep the conversation going, but I wasn't sure how well it would work. For me, the discomfort in my stomach had already started to set in. Still, Ryan kept the conversation moving, doing his best to engage everyone. "So, what kind of articles do you write? You all went to music school, right? Oh, so you played the piano?" Ryan continued firing off questions one after another, and gradually, the women started responding, opening up little by little. Apparently, all three of them had studied music since childhood: piano, violin, and vocal performance, before going on to major in it and eventually working in music journalism. I knew it, talking about music is always so much fun. I was really looking forward to having a great discussion about it tonight. After a brief pause, Lena let out an exaggerated sigh as she spoke. "Sorry, but can you even keep up with this conversation, Mr. Temp? Hey, come on, Lena. Temps come from all sorts of backgrounds. Nathan is a capable guy." Ryan tried to smooth things over with a nervous chuckle, but Lena cut him off and continued speaking. "That might be useful for work, but can he really contribute to our kind of conversation? Let's be real. Music isn't something you can pursue without financial stability. Honestly, considering that he's still working temp jobs, I just feel like we come from completely different worlds." Lena's words left me with no choice but to take a sip of my water. An unbearable silence settled over the table, surrounding us. Ryan kept talking, desperately trying to keep the conversation going, but it was clear that Lena and the other women had lost interest. Their energy had turned ice cold. Unable to bear the awkwardness any longer, I was about to stand up when Lena suddenly spoke. "Maybe we should just call it here. No need to force yourself if you don't feel comfortable. You can leave if you want." "Lena." The other women exchanged uneasy glances, as if even they felt she was taking it too far. But Lena simply crossed her arms, looking at me as if I were no longer worth her attention. Ryan, clearly flustered, hesitated, struggling to find the right words. But at this point, there was no reason to stay. "Understood. I'll be leaving then." I stood up, reaching for my wallet. "I'll pay for my share." But Ryan immediately shook his head to stop me. "It's fine, Nathan. I've got this tonight. I feel bad for dragging you into this mess. Sorry about that. I wasn't much help." I lowered my head and was about to leave when suddenly, a woman from the next table stood up and rushed toward me. Excuse me. Are you Nate?" "Ha!" I instinctively turned around, only to see the woman nervously pulling out her phone, glancing back and forth between me and the screen. While Lena and the others sat in stunned silence, the woman, her breath quickening, continued. "I knew it. You're Nate, the pianist who won the grand prize at an international competition. I'm a huge fan of yours. I even have your CD. And it's worth a fortune now." Her voice wasn't particularly loud, but it was more than enough for everyone at the table to hear. Lena, who had spent the evening throwing insults my way, and other women froze mid-motion. Lena, who had been looking at me with disdain, was now staring, wide-eyed, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "No way. That can't be right. You're just a temp worker, aren't you?" Her voice trembled slightly, as if her entire perception of the world had been turned upside down. But before she could process it, the woman from the next table continued excitedly. "Don't you know? He's won multiple international competitions and used to perform all over Europe. He's not as well known in Japan, but overseas. He's still incredibly famous." She beamed as she held out her phone and a pen. "Could I get your autograph?" Revealing my identity like this wasn't something I had ever intended. But after she went out of her way to approach me, I didn't want to disappoint her. With a quiet resolve, I took the notepad and signed my name. I felt a slight tremor in my right hand as I held the pen. "It's just something from the past. It's not a big deal." I bowed slightly as I handed back the paper, and she thanked me over and over again before returning to her seat, looking absolutely thrilled. Lena and the other women, who had been watching the entire exchange in shock, were at a complete loss for words. When our eyes met, Lena quickly looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "Well then, I'll be going." With that, I left the mixer behind. Stepping outside, I took a deep breath of the cool night air, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. I had thought my life as a pianist was behind me. I had convinced myself that, as long as I stayed in Japan, I could live quietly, unknown. But now that my past had been exposed in such an unexpected way, the emotions I had buried deep inside were stirring once again. Music is not something that can be forgotten so easily. With that realization sinking in, I quickened my pace toward the station. The next morning, running on little sleep, I arrived at work only to find Ryan already waiting at my desk. Apparently, last night's events had already become office gossip. I wasn't thrilled about my past being dragged back into the spotlight, but Ryan, eyes sparkling with excitement, was practically bouncing in place. "Nathan, you're seriously a world-renowned pianist? I can't believe the scene you caused at that mixer. It was a long time ago, so it doesn't matter anymore. I'm just a temp worker now, doing office tasks like everyone else." I shrugged, but Ryan shook his head, clearly not buying it. "Still, that's an insane story. Do you even play it all these days?" "Not really. Making a living in the music world is tough. The competition is brutal, and honestly, it was too much for me to carry. That's why I walked away. Now, I just focus on typing, I guess that suits me better. Man, that's such a waste. Ryan frowned, clearly wanting to say more but holding himself back. He wasn't the type to pity or lecture people, and I appreciated that he didn't push the topic any further. Turning back to my desk, I placed my fingers on the keyboard. There was something oddly calming about it. It wasn't the piano keys, but the feeling of my fingers moving across the keyboard hadn't changed. That brief moment of quiet was quickly interrupted when my boss, William Tate, suddenly called out, "Come to my office for a moment." When I arrived at his office, the usually stern and serious William stood up from his chair, looking, surprisingly, somewhat pleased. "Nathan, I need you to take a seat." "Excuse me. What is this about?" William Tate picked up a document from the stack on his desk and handed it to me. It was a review summary of a music column I had previously written as part of my work. If I remembered correctly, it was something I had added a few lines to while checking a draft for one of our client magazines. My supervisor had asked me to make minor adjustments, nothing more. This got excellent feedback from the client. They said it was clear, well written, and showed deep knowledge of the subject. "I also heard you used to play the piano. Seems like word has gotten around." My heart skipped a beat at his words. Trying to keep my composure, I responded casually, "Yes, well, just a little, nothing serious." Doesn't sound like just a little to me. Anyway, the magazine wants to make this column a regular feature. And we'd like you to take charge of it. Wait, me? That's right. The client is on board with the idea as well. We need to work out the details. So I'd like you to visit their office soon to discuss it. I never imagined I would end up being in charge of a regular column. Just a short while ago, I was a temp worker being mocked at a mixer, and now, an opportunity like this had come my way. It was almost ironic. I felt a little hesitant, but since it was an official assignment, I had no reason to refuse. I accepted the offer. When I returned to my desk, Ryan immediately leaned in, his face full of curiosity. "William just called you in. What was that about?" "Yeah, looks like they want to make the music column a regular thing, and I'm going to be in charge of it." "Seriously? That's amazing. I knew it, once a pianist, always a pianist." "Cut it out. That's in the past. But yeah, I need to meet with the client to go over the details." "The client? Wait, you mean that music magazine?" Ryan's eyes widened as he exclaimed, "Ah. That magazine, the one where I had been humiliated at the mixer." I had the same thought at that very moment. There was a real chance I would run into Lena again. Ugh, this is going to be a pain. I'd rather not see her again if I can help it. But reality wasn't so kind. A few days later, I headed to the client's office with William. We took the elevator up to the designated floor, and as we stepped into the magazine's reception area, I could already sense the polished, high-class atmosphere. When we were led to the meeting room, and I cautiously opened the door, my suspicions were confirmed. There, sitting at the table, was none other than Lena, the same woman who had looked down on me at the mixer and bluntly told me, "You can leave now." I hadn't expected to run into her again so soon. As I stepped inside and took a seat beside William, Lena's expression faltered for just a moment. But she quickly composed herself, straightening her posture and offering a professional smile as she handed me her business card. After the formal introductions, I took her business card, feeling somewhat nervous. Then, William went over the outline of the upcoming column series. Across from me, Lena listened attentively, jotting down notes with a serious expression. The meeting proceeded smoothly, and William seemed satisfied. Then, as we wrapped things up, William suddenly stood, saying, "Nathan, I'll leave the rest of the details to you. I have another meeting to attend." Before I could protest, he walked out, leaving just the two of us in the room. A faintly awkward silence filled the air as I gathered my materials, wondering how to break the ice. Surprisingly, Lena was the first to speak. She placed her hand gently on the documents in front of her. About the other night. I wanted to apologize for the way I spoke to you. Ha! I was so caught off guard that I let out an unintentionally dumbfounded sound. I had never expected such a direct apology from her. Lena bit her lip, as if steeling herself, and continued. I feel ashamed of myself. Music is supposed to be something that transcends background and status, but that night, I judged you based on labels, whether you were a temp, what your title was, and I treated you terribly because of it. Her voice was steady, but I could hear a hint of self-reproach beneath it. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about your music. So I searched everywhere until I finally got my hands on your CD because someone in a mixer said you had won a competition abroad. And when I listened to it, I was stunned. Each note resonated so deeply that it took my breath away. And just imagining the sheer amount of effort and dedication it must have taken to play like that almost brought me to tears. The more Lena spoke, the more emotion crept into her voice. She had once studied music herself. Maybe that's why she could recognize the years of discipline and passion embedded in my playing. But that's exactly why I realized just how cruel my words were. Without knowing anything about your journey, I dismissed you just because you were a temp, and I assumed our lives were too different. I judged you unfairly, looked down on you. That's not something a person who truly loves music should ever do. I know I made you feel awful that night, and I'm truly sorry. I know that an apology won't erase the things I said, and I can't take back what I did, but... Lena hesitantly lifted her head, letting out a small sigh, as if weighed down by an overwhelming sense of guilt. Then, she bowed deeply, and seeing her like that, I felt a quiet warmth spread in my chest. Back at the mixer, I never would have imagined her sincerely admitting her mistake and apologizing like this. For a moment, I couldn't find the words to respond, so I simply lowered my gaze to the documents on the table. It's okay. Honestly, I wasn't exactly calm that night either. Sure, your words did hurt, but now that you've properly apologized, so I'm fine. Hearing that, Lena slowly lifted her head. The moment our eyes met, I noticed a faint shimmer of tears in the depths of hers, and for some reason, it made my chest ache. From now on, I'll make sure never to judge people that way again. And when I talk about music with you, I want to do it with the respect you deserve. I know it might be too late, but I hope that through this project, I can make it up to you in some way. Lena spoke as if she had made up her mind. Her words carried a sincerity that felt completely genuine. I never even tried to speak up for myself that night, and I let the atmosphere get uncomfortable too. So, don't worry about it too much. Now that we're working together, it would be exhausting if things were awkward between us. I allowed myself a small smile as I spoke. Lena, looking relieved, smiled back. Thank you. Well then, let's get to work on the column. With that, she straightened up, gathering her notes and shifting back to a professional tone. Although there was still some awkwardness between us, the tense atmosphere from before had completely shifted. And it now felt like we could have a productive discussion. I wondered if the pain of my past, which had been unexpectedly brought back to the surface, could start to heal simply by having someone acknowledge and understand it. This quiet thought slowly spread through my chest. A few days later, I was once again sent to Noble Artist magazine's editorial office under William's orders. This time, it was to finalize the structure and schedule for the column series. When I arrived at the office, the atmosphere was even more chaotic than before. Phones rang nonstop at the front desks, while in the back, staff members were buried under stacks of cardboard boxes, frantically working. Excuse me. Could you let Lena from Noble Artist know I'm here for the meeting? I approached a busy-looking staff member carrying a pile of documents. The woman glanced toward the back of the office and said, "Oh, Lena? She's over there," pointing in her direction. Following her gaze, I spotted Lena. "Lena, your meeting guest is here." As the woman called out to her, Lena lifted her head from the documents, and our eyes met. For a brief moment, she gave me a slightly apologetic smile. "Sorry, I'll be right there." She quickly set down her pen and started walking toward me, her movements slightly stiff and awkward. However, before she could reach me, her co-workers began calling out to her one after another. "Lena, can you handle this? It's urgent. Oh, and while you're at it, can you check this classical music feature? You studied music, so you can read scores, right? Also, the artist interview transcription deadline got moved up, so we need that done ASAP." The requests piled on relentlessly, each one casually dumped on her with an air of expectation. Each time Lena forced a polite smile and responded with, "Got it." Her co-workers simply handed off their tasks and walked away as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It was hard to watch. "Are you okay?" I instinctively lowered my voice and asked, and Lena, her lips twisting slightly in frustration, said, "Let's step outside for the meeting," before leading me away. She led me to a small meeting space in the corner of the floor. It was a semi-private booth designed for interviews. Here, we could talk without worrying about being overheard. "Sorry, you ended up seeing me in an awkward situation." Lena remained seated as she let out a deep sigh. I took a seat across from her and shrugged. Honestly, it worked out. No way we could have had a proper discussion in the middle of all that. "So, is this a regular thing? People just dumping work on you like that?" I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. "Well, if taking on the extra work helps everyone else, I guess I don't mind." As she spoke, she carefully held onto her documents before spreading them out on the table. A quick glance revealed various planning notes and project proposals scattered across the pages. I entered this industry because I wanted to introduce more people to music. Classical music and jazz, in particular, tend to be seen as too complex or intimidating, which makes people shy away from them. As someone who studied music, I really wanted to change that perception. But whenever I voiced my opinions, people dismissed me, saying things like, "Oh, another music school graduate acting like an expert." Lena let out a small sigh and lowered her eyebrows in self-mockery. In our editorial team, most people come from general universities. They have great editing skills. But the moment I try to introduce even a little specialized knowledge, I get accused of showing off. Honestly, I've never really fit in. She cast her eyes downward, her expression turning somber. Before I knew it, I started putting up this wall in my mind, telling myself that only other music school graduates would understand me. That's probably why I acted the way I did at the mixer. It's ironic, isn't it? I became exactly the kind of arrogant music school graduate people expect us to be. She bit her lip, frustration and regret clear in her demeanor. "Then, why don't we use this project as an opportunity?" Leaning forward slightly, I spoke with intent. Among the documents she had laid out, I noticed ideas that went beyond just classical music and jazz. There were notes on pop music and film music as well, showing an effort to bridge the gap between niche and mainstream audiences. If she could use her expertise in a way that made music more accessible, it wouldn't just change how the editorial team saw her, it could redefine her role within the magazine. "You'd really help me?" Her eyes met mine, filled with uncertainty and a flicker of hope. "Of course. If you don't mind working with me, I'd be happy to." As I picked up some of the notes and scanned through them, I could see her ideas had real potential. A feature that covered everything from pop music to film scores. If executed well, it could be something truly engaging. At first, I was only planning classical music-focused features. But then our chief editor, Margaret, told me to think about a broader readership. So I tried forcing in pop and film music elements, but it started feeling scattered, and I lost confidence in how to bring it all together. She smiled wryly, running her fingers over a heavily marked up notepad. The red ink and highlighter scribbles covering the pages spoke volumes about how much she had struggled. That just makes me want to help even more, I said with a nod. Having studied piano overseas, I had been exposed to a wide variety of music beyond classical music. I lacked editing experience, but if the goal was to introduce musical diversity in an engaging way, I might actually be able to contribute something useful. Thank you. I feel a bit relieved. Saying that, Lena let out a small smile. A few days later, Lena and I visited a music festival held in a commercial plaza, searching for ideas for our column. The lineup was incredibly diverse: pop music performances, choral singing, and even kids' dance showcases. While young children bounced around excitedly, an elderly couple sat together on a nearby bench, quietly humming along to a nostalgic melody. The open, relaxed atmosphere was infectious, and before long, we were just as excited as the festival goers. Look over there. They have a choir performance for kids, it's adorable. But wait, the side stage has a live band playing too. Ugh. Where do we even start? Holding the event pamphlet, Lena's eyes sparkled as she spoke excitedly beside me. Unlike the structured atmosphere of a classical music concert hall, people here spread out blankets on the grass, sipped drinks, and enjoyed the music casually. She seemed completely fascinated by the scene. What if we focus on ways to help people navigate multiple stages efficiently? If we're writing an article, we could introduce strategies for making the most of the festival experience. When I suggested while flipping through the pamphlet, "That's a great idea," Lena nodded eagerly. Even just standing there, inspiration struck from all directions as music poured in from the various stages. Yeah, if we mapped out optimal routes between performances, readers might feel more encouraged to attend next time. Also, I noticed a lot of older attendees, maybe including info on seating areas and restrooms would be helpful, too. While we brainstormed, the festival continued in full swing. Unlike a traditional concert setting, where there's a clear divide between the stage and the audience, here, everyone felt like they were part of the performance. Lena, still clutching the pamphlet, was completely absorbed in the scene unfolding before her. The following week, the festival report and column we had put together were published on Noble Artist's website, and the response was overwhelming. Rather than just reviewing the performances, our article highlighted practical tips like suggested walking routes, seating options, and accessibility details, which resonated deeply with readers. On social media, people shared comments like, "I wasn't really into music festivals, but this makes me want to go, and this seems perfect for attending with my elderly parents." Within the editorial team, excitement spread as people remarked, "This is a fresh take on festival coverage. And we could use this approach for future projects," turning the office into a mini celebration and rapidly boosting Lena's reputation. That morning, when I arrived at Noble Artist's office for a follow-up meeting, I was greeted by a beaming Lena. "Nathan, thank you so much. I never imagined the festival article would get such a huge response. The entire editorial team is already asking when we can do the next one. I just threw in a few suggestions. Your reporting and writing made it what it was," I said, trying to downplay my role. Still, hearing her express her gratitude so openly, I had to admit, it didn't feel bad at all. But it was thanks to you, Nathan, that readers realized music is more accessible than I thought. Your ideas about navigation routes and perspectives for older audiences really made a difference. Even Margaret praised it, saying, "This kind of practical approach is important, and I learned a lot from it too." So once again, thank you. Lena smiled a little shyly and bowed her head. At that moment, a low voice sounded from right behind us. Well, so this is the temp worker I've been hearing about." Startled, I turned around to find Stephen, the deputy editor-in-chief, standing there with his arms crossed. He was of average build, but there was something sharp and calculating about his presence. Lena immediately straightened her posture and muttered, "Stephen," in a low voice. "I hear the festival article was well received." Margaret was pleased that it introduced a fresh perspective. Quite impressive. I gave a small nod. Thank you. That being said, Stephen crossed his arms again, tilting his chin slightly as he looked down at me. You got lucky this time, but don't expect to keep producing hits so easily. Don't let it get to your head. That's a little harsh to say. Lena, you're one of the rising stars in our editorial team. You're being trusted with major projects, and Margaret wants to push your name out there. And yet, you're working with a temp? Stephen shrugged, curling his lips in a half-smile. Lena's patience finally snapped. Stephen, that's uncalled for. Nathan is one of our business partners, and he played a crucial role in this project. What you're saying is, I know that. That's why I praised him at the start, didn't I? Stephen deliberately kept his voice calm as he cut Lena off. But Lena, the weight of responsibility is different between us and a temp. Temps are nothing more than part-timers. Must be nice, huh? You temps don't have to care about the company's numbers at all. Lena's brows furrowed sharply, and she glared up at him. Stephen, Nathan takes his work seriously, and to me, he's an invaluable partner. Dismissing him like that is completely disrespectful. Stephen fell silent for a moment before letting out a short scoff. Is that so? Well, temps are easily replaceable. The moment they're deemed useless, they're out. Do your best while you still can. With that, he turned on his heel and walked away, disappearing into the back of the editorial office. A heavy silence remained between Lena and me. I'm sorry, Nathan. Stephen is just like that. He always has something to say, but this time, he really crossed the line. Lena muttered in frustration, glancing at me. It's okay. Don't worry about it. What Stephen said isn't entirely wrong. I am just a temp, after all. Before I could finish, Lena shook her head forcefully. That's not true. I rely on you, and I trust you more than anyone else. Her tone was firmer than usual. In her eyes, I saw a level of anger far greater than I had expected. Lena. Hearing me say her name, she let out a slow breath, relaxing her shoulders slightly. A faint blush colored her cheeks. I mean, I'm not really in a position to say that, am I? After saying that, Lena quietly lowered her gaze and traced the edge of her documents on the table with her fingertip. For the longest time, I wasn't given any real opportunities. Every time I pitched something, I was told, there's no budget for that, or there's no demand for it. She paused for a moment, biting her lip lightly. But when we worked on the festival article, you actually took my ideas seriously. You didn't just agree with me, but you also helped me make them better. You showed me how to refine them and connect ideas in ways that excite readers. You stayed with me through all of it. And that meant everything to me. Lena's eyes seemed slightly teary. But it wasn't just weakness. Instead, there was a quiet yet unshakable determination, a strength that showed her resolve to keep moving forward. That's why I can't just stand by when people like Stephen look down on you. You're the first real partner I've ever had. And I won't let anyone belittle that. Her words were firm, clear, and filled with an unwavering sincerity. Thank you. Honestly, what he said hurt a little, but if you believe in me that much, then I think I can keep going. I smiled, and Lena responded with a slightly bashful smile of her own. The roughness left by Stephen's words hadn't completely faded, but more than that, Lena's trust in me as a true partner quietly warmed my heart. That evening, as our meeting wrapped up, Lena hurried over, looking slightly flustered. Nathan, do you have a moment? I need to go see Margaret now. Would you come with me? Margaret? Sure. I answered immediately, and Lena let out a relieved sigh. She quickly led me down the hallway toward Margaret's office. Lena knocked on the door, and a composed female voice responded from inside. Come in. I had heard from Ryan and other employees that Margaret, the editor-in-chief of Noble Artist, was both feared and respected, strict yet capable of showing a softer side when needed. As we entered, Margaret was focused on the documents on her desk, but upon noticing us, she swiveled her chair around and gave a quiet smile. "Lena and Nathan, you both did an excellent job on the recent project. Thanks to you, the festival feature became a huge topic, and the reader survey results were overwhelmingly positive. Thank you." Lena bowed her head. I stood beside her, feeling a bit nervous. Margaret tapped the stack of papers on her desk to straighten them before lowering her voice slightly. "There's another project I want to ask you to take on. This one is something of a personal initiative, frankly. It's going to be a high-stakes gamble. And with that comes significant risk." Her resolute tone made both Lena and me instinctively hold our breath. Margaret pulled out a single sheet from the stack and gently placed it on the table. "If this project doesn't succeed, we may have no choice but to consider shutting down the magazine entirely." "What?" Lena's voice was barely above a whisper, laced with shock. I was at a loss for words as well. According to Margaret, Noble Artist's circulation had been declining year by year, and the company was putting increasing pressure on the editorial team. The success of the festival article had been recognized as a crucial turning point, leading Margaret to make the bold decision to launch a large-scale project now. "Seeing the response to the column you created, I knew we still had a chance. Rather than treating music as something exclusive, we need to integrate it seamlessly into everyday life. That's the approach we've been missing. That's why I'm placing my bet on this project. And I want both of you to take it seriously. Of course, the pressure will be immense, but what do you say?" Lena closed her eyes tightly for a moment, taking a deep breath before looking back at Margaret. "Please let me do it. I've always wanted to work on a project that could determine the future of this magazine. I will make sure it succeeds." Her voice was unwavering, filled with determination. I gave a small nod beside her, making up my mind. "I want to help too." Margaret smiled quietly. "Thank you." And with that, we stepped into a project that would decide the future of the magazine. The next day, with such a major project in her hands, Lena had quickly become the center of attention in the editorial department. However, along with that, the pressure from the upper management was intense. As she remained glued to her desk, immersed in work, there was an unmistakable tension in her posture. "Lena, are you okay?" Noticing that she still hadn't taken a break for lunch, I spoke up, and Lena responded with a small, wry smile. "Sorry, I just don't have an appetite. The pressure is getting to me. If I screw this up, the magazine could shut down, right? Just thinking about it makes my stomach hurt." It was the first time I had seen Lena, usually so energetic, looking this worn down. And it was understandable. Shouldering the responsibility for a project that could affect everyone's careers and dreams was an unimaginable burden. Seeing her like that, I gently pulled her away from her desk and led her to a quieter meeting space. Sitting there stressing out won't help. "Let's take a break." She nodded without resistance and sank into a chair. "Thanks. And sorry for dragging you into this, Nathan. I know I have to do my best, but I just feel like I'm spinning my wheels." Seeing her slump slightly, I was reminded of my own past. The time when I was crushed under the weight of expectations in the piano world, the bitter memory of walking away from the stage surfaced in my mind. Actually, I've been in a similar situation before. After winning a major competition, everyone kept asking me, "What's next? When's your next performance?" The pressure never stopped. Eventually, just placing my fingers on the piano keys made my hands tremble. The sounds in my head stopped making sense. Lena looked at me in surprise. I let out a small, self-deprecating chuckle. And then, I lost the ability to play. Just looking at a piano made my fingers shake. In the end, I couldn't keep up with the competition and meet expectations, so I quit. That's why I'm working as a temp now. The emptiness and frustration I had felt after losing my ability to play weighed heavy on my mind again. I had wanted to forget that moment forever, but watching Lena brought back the pain as vividly as if it had happened yesterday. Nathan. I had no idea. Lena let out a small, sharp breath. So that's exactly why I understand. The more you push yourself, the more pressure tightens around you. But if handled the right way, pressure can be turned into strength. I failed to do that, so I don't want you to go through the same thing. I looked straight at her as I continued. Being told that the future of the magazine rests on your shoulders, that's an impossible weight for anyone to bear alone. But you're not alone, Lena. I'm here, and so is the rest of the team. Let's work through this together, figure things out one step at a time. You don't have to take it all on by yourself. Lena let out a deep breath and closed her eyes for a brief moment. When she opened them again, I noticed a slight shimmer of tears welling up. Thank you. Just having you here somehow makes everything feel lighter. I can't let this pressure crush me. I think I'll try to ease up a little. She swallowed hard and forced a small smile. Think you can eat something now? When I asked, Lena hesitated for a second before nodding with a sheepish expression. Yeah, I guess I should grab something. We need to talk through the project anyway, and I should keep my energy up. The tension in her expression had visibly eased. I felt a quiet sense of relief. There's a great sandwich place nearby. I'll grab us something to go, and we can go over our plans while we eat. Thanks, Nathan. Having you here really makes a difference. Lena smiled softly, a slight blush rising to her cheeks. I smiled back. This project would determine the future of the magazine, and the pressure was immense. But if I could match my pace with hers, support her step by step, I was sure we could make it through. Over the next few days, Lena and I spent every waking moment refining our ideas, barely taking time to rest. If we're going to do this, we need a concept that makes people want to attend. We can't just rely on traditional classical music, we need to incorporate more casual styles and dynamic stage performances. Then let's integrate social media. If we can live stream the concert and engage with audiences who can't attend in person, we'll expand our reach. And what if we make it interactive? Maybe an app where people can vote on setlists or request songs in real time. It would make them feel part of the experience. As we brainstormed, the project began evolving into something much bigger than just another music concert. We dug through Lena's carefully gathered research, and I tapped into my experiences from overseas music festivals, exchanging ideas late into the night. At times, we pulled in other team members from the editorial department, discussing the feasibility of different aspects. As the draft started to take shape, Margaret widened her eyes in surprise as she reviewed the submitted project proposal. I see. This is incredible. It's not just about drawing in readers, but also about showcasing the true breadth of music's reach. This aligns with our magazine's identity while also appealing to an audience we've overlooked until now. I love it. Let's move forward with this. Lena clenched her fists in excitement, her voice full of emotion. Thank you so much. And with that, the project that would decide the future of the magazine officially set into motion. We had to make it a success. With that silent vow between us, we took our first steps into the next stage. As the project progressed, our ideas ranging from social media-driven audience engagement to stage layout optimizations gained unexpected momentum. The editorial team threw their full support behind the promotional campaign, and on the day of the event, the venue was nearly packed. Even before the concert had begun, the air inside the hall buzzed with anticipation. This is incredible. So many people actually showed up. Lena gazed out at the audience from behind the curtain, murmuring with deep emotion. unable to believe that the project she had helped create had drawn such a large crowd. Her expression was filled with anticipation rather than nervousness. "Everything will be fine. The rehearsals went perfectly, the stage is ready, and the performers are all set. Let's just focus on supporting them as best we can." I reassured her, and she nodded firmly, clenching her fists in determination. As the concert began, the program flowed seamlessly. A young violinist mesmerized the audience with stunning technique, followed by a pop singer who electrified the room. The diverse lineup kept the audience engaged, their cheers and applause never ceasing. Even online, the event was gaining traction. Viewer numbers on the live stream kept rising, and social media was flooded with comments like, "I've never seen a concert this exciting before." Just one or two more performances, and then it's time for the final act, the main pianist. She glanced down at the program, carefully confirming the remaining schedule. I had heard that this pianist was chosen to symbolize the fusion of a seasoned maestro and an emerging talent. But we still haven't heard from them, have we? The final pianist should be on soon, but there's been no contact yet. When I asked out of concern, Lena furrowed her brows in confusion. "You're right. He might be running late. Steven said he arranged everything through his own connections, so we should leave it to him." Just a few minutes later, a staff member rushed over, his face pale. "It's a disaster. The main pianist hasn't arrived yet. We can't even get in touch with him." Lena was momentarily speechless before she quickly scanned the area for Steven. And as if waiting for this very moment, Steven stepped out from the shadows backstage, his posture relaxed and composed. "The pianist is already decided." "What?" Lena shot Steven a sharp glare. I felt a sinking sense of dread and held my breath. "He's right here, after all. A world-renowned pianist." Steven pointed directly at me. There was an undeniable malice in his gesture. "How do you even know about that? I planned this from the very beginning. Did you really think I'd waste my time bringing in a top-tier pianist for some run-of-the-mill concert? You were always the plan. The internet is already buzzing." He pulled out his phone and held up the screen. Social media was flooded with posts like, "Is the legendary pianist Nate making a comeback?" It seemed someone had leaked the information, fueling excitement not only among those at the venue but also in the online community. "This is absurd." Lena clenched her fists, shaking with anger. "You never even booked a pianist in the first place, did you? This was your plan all along?" Steven merely smiled, unfazed. "How else were we supposed to make this event a success? A rookie writer and a temp worker throwing together an event like this? Please. The only way to make a splash was to force the narrative. You don't want the magazine to shut down, right? Then have your so-called trusted pianist play." His words were beyond selfish, and they were cruel. "You don't have to listen to this scumbag." Lena's voice was filled with barely restrained fury. But Steven merely chuckled. "Relax, Lena. Even if this magazine folds, I'll make sure you're taken care of. Of course, I'll expect some gratitude in return." Lena's eyes widened in shock, her fists clenching so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Steven, still wearing his smug smirk, looked down at her as if she were insignificant. "We're about to start." A staff member called out, urgency lacing his voice. The tension in the air thickened. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt, then took a deep breath. "I'll play." Lena whipped around, her eyes filled with worry. "But it's fine. This is how we'll make the event a success." Even as I spoke, my heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I had once crumbled under the weight of expectations, running away from the piano. That painful memory resurfaced, and sweat began to bead in my palms. Then, Lena reached out and gently touched my fingers. She could feel them trembling. Her eyes met mine, and she shook her head weakly. "You're shaking. You can't." I was scared. That much was undeniable. But I couldn't run away. Not this time. I always thought I had nothing left. But in the end, the only thing I truly had was the piano. And with it, I'll protect you. The moment I said it, Lena's eyes welled up with tears, and she gently squeezed my hand. No matter what happens, I'll be right here with you. You're not alone. Her words burned warmly within me, steadying my resolve. Stephen's scheming had forced me into this unwanted stage. But there was no other way. I had to use this situation to make it a success. The stage lights dimmed, and the audience fell into a hushed silence. For the first time in years, my hands touched a grand piano. As soon as my right hand rested on the piano keys, I felt a slight tremor in my fingertips. The fear I had once experienced crept back, slowly seeping into my body. But this time, I wasn't alone. I took a deep breath. And I exhaled, letting my breath carry away the trembling in my fingers. Back then, I lost. But I wouldn't run away again. I made that promise to myself. And the moment I struck the first note, I felt the entire hall hold its breath. Uncontrollable emotions poured through my fingertips and into the piano keys. The piece I had performed countless times in international competitions now carried the weight of my emotions, woven into every note. At first, my fingers were stiff, but as I passed the first few measures, they began to move more fluidly. It was as if the music was telling me, "Welcome back." My heart trembled with warmth. As the piece approached its climax, applause rippled through the audience. It had been years since I last stood on a stage and heard this sound. The applause I had once feared now felt strangely comforting. As I struck the final note and let it fade into the hall, there was a brief moment of silence, before a roaring wave of applause and cheers erupted. Bathed in the stage lights, I reached for the microphone. "Nice to meet you, or maybe, it's been a while. My name is Nathan." My voice shook slightly, but I looked out at the audience and continued. After winning a major competition, I couldn't handle the pressure and abandoned the stage. But today, I played again because I had people who believed in me, who supported me. She, and so many others, taught me that if you have someone by your side, you can always try again. If there's anyone out there struggling like I did, I hope my music can be a small source of strength for you. The applause swelled even louder. I saw people in the audience wiping away tears. From the wings, Lena was also clapping, her eyes glistening with emotion. As relief, gratitude, and a long-lost sense of fulfillment flooded my chest, I bowed deeply. The moment I stepped backstage, Lena ran straight toward me. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around me, holding me tightly. "Nathan, thank you so much." Tears streamed down her cheeks, falling onto my shoulder. The faint scent of her shampoo and the tremor in her breath matched the pounding in my chest. "Thank you too. Because you believed in me, I was able to stand up again." As I spoke, I gently wrapped my arms around her in return. I had once been defeated by fear, unable to face the stage. But now, I had returned to the piano, able to share music once more. And it was all because she had been there to support me. "Heh, what's with this cheesy drama?" A familiar, unpleasant voice cut through the moment, freezing the air around us. Turning around, I saw Stephen standing there with his arms crossed, wearing a sour expression. "Come on, it's thanks to my plan that the legendary pianist made his grand comeback, right? The magazine won't have to shut down after all. If anything, I should be the one taking the credit." He sneered, his face devoid of the panic he had shown earlier. The audience's reaction and the social media buzz made it clear the event was a massive success. And now, he was trying to claim all the glory for himself. Just then, a firm, commanding voice rang out from behind us. "Stephen, what you did is absolutely unacceptable." The sound of heels clicking against the floor echoed as Margaret stepped into view. Keeping her expression calm, she stared Stephen down and continued. "You deliberately withheld a professional pianist, used Nathan to stir up controversy and manipulated the media. That alone is a blatant violation of company policy. Furthermore, your inappropriate remarks toward Lena and your blatant discrimination against Nathan as a temporary employee, none of it can be ignored. TCH, Stephen clicked his tongue in annoyance and turned his face away. I had to do it, or this event might not have been a success. In the end, everyone benefited, didn't they? So what's the problem? Margaret kept her sharp gaze fixed on him as she responded. Rather than saying everyone benefited, it would be more accurate to say that you trampled on the goodwill and efforts of others. Your actions require the company to consider disciplinary measures. Of course, we'll thoroughly investigate the details, but for now, you need to step down. The surrounding staff shot him cold glances, and Stephen's expression soured as if he had lost his place. He glanced at Lena, but she remained silent, suppressing her anger, her rejection of him clear. In the end, Stephen's lips trembled as if he wanted to say something, but without uttering a word, he turned on his heel and walked away quickly. Phew! Margaret let out a short sigh and then turned to face me. Nathan, I truly appreciate everything you've done. I deeply regret that we put you through this situation. I never expected Stephen to take such drastic measures. She bowed deeply. Following her lead, the surrounding staff also lowered their heads apologetically. No, it's fine. In the end, I found the resolve to stand on stage again. And if this has saved the magazine, that makes me happier than anything. Margaret smiled with relief before turning to Lena. Lena, you did an amazing job. Without your initial ideas, this event might not have come together at all. Thanks to you, the threat of the magazine being shut down has been averted. Hearing that, Lena wiped her tears and let out a small smile. Thank you. But it was because Nathan was there that I didn't give up until the very end. She looked at me with eyes still swollen from crying, yet shining brighter than ever. A few days after the event's resounding success, Stephen was ultimately fired for violating company regulations, workplace harassment, and inappropriate behavior. Officially, it was labeled as a voluntary resignation to avoid further scandal, but word of his misconduct spread rapidly throughout the industry. His future looked bleak, and no one knew where he had gone or what he was doing now. He would likely never return to the public eye. Meanwhile, my unexpected comeback, which had started as part of the magazine rescue project, had caught the attention of media and social networks. Because of this, under Margaret's initiative, Noble Artist decided to feature a special article about my journey as a pianist. The piece covered my early years in music, my struggles in international competitions, and the pressures that led me to abandon the stage. The candid account resonated with many readers, significantly boosting the magazine's sales. On social media, comments like "Now is the perfect time to listen to music" and "This comeback story is so inspiring" flooded in, increasing the publisher's stock value. The story of the legendary pianist's return had become the driving force behind the magazine's revival. Now, I had left my temporary job behind and fully resumed my career as a pianist. Opportunities to perform at domestic and international concerts and music festivals had increased, and my schedule was becoming as packed as it had been before. At the same time, I started receiving messages I had never expected. On social media and through emails, people wrote, "I want to hear your performance again and I'm cheering for you," leading to a growing community of fans connecting with each other. There's even talk about setting up a fan club for me. It feels so weird. I sighed as I sat on the edge of a desk. Lena, who had been bustling around the editorial office for a while, heard that and lightly tapped her knee as if everything made sense. Ah! I knew it. Oh, yeah, of course. The editorial team is already working on it. Your fan club is officially in the process of being launched. What? Seriously? I mean, it feels too over the top for me. As I struggled to hide my confusion, Lena abruptly dropped a stack of papers onto the desk and turned toward me. Honestly, you don't understand your own value at all. You know you're more than just a great pianist, right? Crossing her arms, she started listing things off. Let's see. First, you type fast, and your work is always accurate. You always step in when someone needs help. Plus, despite your incredible career, you never act arrogant. You're humble, and your smile is unfairly cute, like a puppy. Honestly, it's almost criminal how oblivious you are. Lena, usually composed, seemed to be speaking entirely on impulse. Hearing her words, I felt an undeniable sense of embarrassment creeping in. The sincerity in her praise was almost overwhelming, and I could feel my face heating up. Getting complimented this much is kind of embarrassing. She had been rattling off reasons without hesitation, but now she suddenly trailed off. It seemed as if the embarrassment was catching up with her after saying it herself. She averted her gaze, and I could see a faint blush coloring her cheeks. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, you should have more confidence in yourself. Even if you weren't a pianist, just being you is. Before she could finish, I instinctively took her hand. What are you doing all of a sudden? Sorry. It's just hearing you say all that made me really happy. And also, you blushing like this is kind of adorable. As soon as I said that, Lena turned even redder and pouted. Ugh, idiot. Just so you know, I'm your first fan. No matter what happens, I'll always support you, so stop worrying about pointless things. I chuckled at her words and gave a small nod. Thanks, Lena. Then I'll work even harder so I don't let my #1 fan down. As I said that, she let out a soft laugh, and before we knew it, our lips met. No matter how many times life falls apart, I'm not alone. Just having someone by my side gives me the courage to take another step forward. Even with pressure and past failures weighing me down, as long as there's someone who truly believes in me, I can always rise again. We just need to keep moving forward, hand in hand. Because there, a new melody will always be waiting.